Clayton, Michigan football back on the practice field this week. Last week was off. Guys getting a little bit healthy. You're coming off the Big Ten championship. I don't know. Maybe some guys went home. I think finals are coming up here. But this week it's back to business. But for the Michigan coaching staff, it has been a different kind of business they've been tending to while they prepare for Alabama. Michigan also active in the transfer portal. Did lose a guy on Monday, the first one, which is kind of surprising, in C.J. Stokes, the sophomore running back. Kind of looks like it just kind of became a numbers game there. Maybe we just start with him first. Clayton, your thoughts on the C.J. Stokes transfer? Given what we'd seen from him, I thought maybe he'd be a guy that could duke it out for running back 2, running back 3 next year. But clearly he's kind of coming into a loaded room.
Yeah, and that's why I wasn't all that surprised, just because it felt like he got buried this year. Like I was reading the quote because I was looking at it right in the article, but Mike Hart, I think after week 1 was like, hey, we got a whole bunch of guys that could be our number 3 running back. But Kalel Mullings clearly earned that role, never gave it up as the year went on. And really they stayed healthy, which was a positive, and didn't have to use Kalel Mullings all that much. But you had Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. Now you look at Mullings probably coming back for his 5th year. Benjamin Hall seemed like he might have been running 4th. Cole Cabana is a guy that has a lot of promise, highly touted kid that didn't get his opportunity this year, but should in the future. You bring in Jordan Marshall, Mr. Ohio, 4-star top 100 kid out of Cincinnati area. I mean, it just felt like you said, numbers game is a good way to put it. That I always say this, but there's some sort of number, whatever it is, given the situation, but there, a certain amount of attrition is healthy for a program. You need those spots to open up for some of the guys that we're going to talk about here in a second. And, it just felt like this was kind of that situation, but wish CJ Stokes the best. He had a classy exit with his social media posts. He put his highlights up on YouTube. So he's ready to roll. And I think someone's going to get a guy that could be a pretty good back down the road.
He's a good player, but when you have this type of program, you're going to lose good players and you're going to bring in good players. Like it's just kind of how it goes. I assume with practice revving up this week, probably going to see some other guys. Again, we don't speculate on names. That's not fair to them. But we'll see. There are guys that, if you thought highly of before and didn't see them play a ton this year, I think, even in this era, anyone could enter the transfer portal. So we'll see about Michigan guys that potentially exit this week. I would assume that this would be the week that starts trickling out as they start to put together that travel roster for the Rose Bowl. But, you go back and you kind of, I know you guys discussed Dante Moore and some of the other portal pursuits in that show on Thursday, but right now it seems like you're not seeing a plethora of offers go out there. We know they've been in contact with Dante Moore. We know Donovan McCulley, the wide receiver, former quarterback from Indiana, has been in the mix. Joey Slackman, the Penn defensive lineman. Upton Stout, I believe, is visiting here soon. Michigan had Jayshawn Barham, the linebacker from Maryland, who some people might remember that was the guy that picked off J.J. McCarthy in the end zone of that Maryland game. He was in town on Monday for a visit. So we're starting to see, at least a hot board take place. And, we could go through each guy and do all that stuff. But I'm curious, Clayton, when you look at all of these guys that are on the board right now, and there will be more names that emerge too, but who's that guy that you're saying, of everyone that's out there, this, X player is the guy that would maybe have the biggest impact or the most important target as of right now?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, it's you got to start at quarterback. But I do feel like Michigan's in kind of a weird situation with not knowing what J.J. McCarthy is going to do. And I said this on Thursday, you would not trade that situation either. I mean, the fact that you have a chance to get him back and the fact that you're in the college football playoff, meaning your season is extended and, he's going to be playing potentially a week into January is an overwhelming positive. But Dante Moore, obviously a guy that stands out that I think you would love to land. Clearly, it seems like Oregon is still in the mix there, even though they landed Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma, which was a big land for them. But what that tells me, the fact that Dante, and he's likely to visit, it sounds like Oregon this coming weekend, according to Chad Simmons of On3. I mean, that tells me that he is serious about the word we keep hearing with him, which is, he's focused on development. He went somewhere where he could play right away last year. Now he wants to, I'm sure he'd love to play, but at least get developed and understands that this is kind of a long game. And I think he understands that teams like Oregon, teams like Michigan, you can win at and be developed, turn into a pro, could be a really good situation for him. So I guess I would start with him, but I mean, there are guys out there, and Upton Stout is on campus as we speak as well. So I mean, you have some guys visiting. A year ago at this time, they had a couple commits from transfer guys. This year feels like it's a little bit slower, but maybe that's just kind of how it's developed based on some of the needs they have. But I mean, Jayshawn Barham, it seems like every time a linebacker makes a play against Michigan, Michigan just goes and gets him in the transfer portal, like Ernest Hausman last year with his sack on JJ at the Big House last November. So I think that would be a good one. Linebacker's a position. If Junior Colson, who just won the Lot Impact Trophy, if he departs, you're gonna have a bit of a need there. But nickel, I think with Upton Stout, the Western Kentucky corner is also something that you could. You definitely feel like you have a need there as well. They're already thin at corner, nickel as it is, so that would be a big land, and it sounds like there's quite a bit of buzz with that one too.
Yeah, and I think we may even have a question about it later, but in terms of numbers, it doesn't feel like this is a year where they're going to get, last year it wound up being 9 guys, right? I think maybe we're looking at 4 or 5. Again, it's premature for me to even speculate on that because we don't know what needs they'll truly need to fill, depending on who comes out in the draft and things like that. But to me, I do look at Donovan McCulley as someone that interests me. I mean, he's 6'5", 200 pounds. We saw him play well this year. He actually had that touchdown pass in the game against Michigan, Indiana's only touchdown. But, he led Indiana in catches. He had 48. He had 644 yards. He had 6 touchdowns. And, when you're going to lose Cornelius Johnson, and I think I'm leaning towards them losing Roman Wilson, but then again, JJ McCarthy comes back. Maybe he's a one more year fund guy, but regardless, I think that what Michigan lacks heading into next season is a proven big-bodied receiver that you can kind of, throw the ball up to and have him go get it. And to a certain extent, Cornelius Johnson has been that, but I think that maybe McCulley, at Michigan might be even a little bit better at those contested catch situations, given his frame, given his production. So we'll see what happens there. Again, it's going to be anytime you have a shot to land a guy, even just the second time around, and Dante Moore, a 5-star guy that was from your backyard. You thought you had a good chance with him, but then obviously he winds up going out west and pursuing another opportunity. I'm still skeptical. I'm still skeptical that he'd be willing to go somewhere and sit for a year. But then again, Oregon's been in the mix. I think Michigan will stay in the mix. I know we've heard some buzz about Ohio State as well, but we'll see. I'd like to see this board expand a little bit because I don't know that any of the guys currently on the board. I'll just put it this way: if I had to power rank them, I think McCulley would probably be at the top of my list in terms of what it means for 2024's impact. But we'll see what happens, man. I don't know. Any other thoughts on? I know I saw that Trevor Etienne was in the portal over the weekend. It seems like that quickly was trending towards elsewhere, but I know that's a guy that's been mentioned with Michigan as well. Any thoughts on any other guys that are out there?
Yeah, it seemed like it was like the worst kept secret in college football that he was going in the portal. I know our Chris Ballas mentioned him a couple weeks or maybe a week or so before he entered the portal. And then as soon as he entered, I mean, there was buzz when you read, reports from Georgia sites and Alabama people are asking about him. And it seems like everyone kind of knew he was going in, which makes me feel like he was putting feelers out there to a lot of the big time programs. So it seems like Georgia has generated quite a bit of buzz there early, which is crazy. Like in the Big Ten, you wouldn't necessarily see a rival to rival transfer. I mean, rarely, and I'm sure we will see it, as we go forward here in this kind of new era of college football. But the SEC, it's just a no brainer. If you go from Florida to Georgia, you can do it and run behind that offensive line, that offense and win a bunch of games there. So yeah, feels like that might be the likely spot, but again, don't know at this point. But yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how their strategy evolves and how they kind of balance all of it now that they're, full steam ahead here as they prepare for the playoff.